Hello and welcome to Logan Sounds Off, where we talk about books, music, and a whole lot more. I'm your host, Logan Kelly. Welcome to Logan Sounds Off. Today it's International Radio Day, so I brought my dad here that I was going to talk to him about what radio was like. So Dad, what was radio like back in the 70s or 80s when you were a child?
Okay, well, I suppose at the time there was quite a limited amount of stations in comparison to now where you can actually access international radio. In Ireland, you had RTE1 and RTE2. Then there was a radio station called Atlantic 252 and a couple of other little smaller ones, regional ones. Radio at the time was probably a lot more, on RTE1 you would have had a lot more talk radio with like a Gay Byrne in the morning, who everybody used to listen to and love.
Yeah.
And then you'd have some of the radio stations then, it was even before like 2FM only started in the late 80s, early 90s, I think. So we would have listened to Dave Fanning and people like that.
Yeah. What was your favourite show across like a long wave and all those different types of radio? What was your favourite show?
Well, luckily enough, thanks to you, I got to meet one of my heroes, which was Dave Fanning. And we used to listen to Dave Fanning because he used to have a rock show from 8 to 10 on 2FM every night. And that's
8
where...
to 10, like John Creeden, actually.
Yeah.
RTE1, yeah.
But the only thing was, you got to listen to different music from Ram Jam with Black Betty through the Stiff Little Fingers with Alternative Ulster, and even a song that was only 30 years old the other day, which is Sultans of Ping, Where's My Jumper. So that's where I used to record all my stuff onto blank tapes for myself.
Yeah, so that was kind of your way to go for cassettes.
Yeah.
What was your favourite station on all of the different type of radio?
Mostly 2FM for the simple reason that Dave Fanning was on it. I had a tendency to be more into alternative music and heavy rock and stuff like that, and you wouldn't really get to listen to it often on the actual radio because there wasn't many rock stations.
It was all usually like pop and stuff like that. So you were kind of like with Dave Fanning, me with John Creeden, that you usually really listen to John Creeden or Dave Fanning, and then when he wasn't on, you'd listen to something else. Was that kind of like what you were like with Dave Fanning?
Yeah. I used to record a lot of stuff on tapes and stuff like that. So
you've actually got one over there.
Yeah.
In the room there of Dave Fanning.
Like there was most unusual things, like at the time in the early 90s and that, Dave Fanning used to play things like the Golden Horde, bands like the Honey Thieves, stuff like that you just didn't hear anywhere.
And you couldn't get. So like they're like really rare albums, aren't they? You can't really get that. You can't get them on any streaming platforms or YouTube or anything.
No, and I don't think you could even get them on Discogs and things because there were Irish bands that were around for a short enough time.
Yeah, and when you're saying rare, it's not Chumbawamba Slap rare. It's extremely rare. You can't buy the CD anywhere. It'd be very rare if you found it in a car boot sale. There could be anything there.
There was even a song one time called Bank Raid in a Tie that I have recorded. Yeah. I have it recorded, and it's all samples and stuff like which really probably sound a bit like Big Audio Dynamite. But even I sent a request in to find out a bit more about that particular song, and nobody had ever heard of it. And it was only played once that I managed to get it recorded on Dave Fanning.
Oh my God! So you have a tape of a song that was only played once ever in the whole world?
No. I only got to hear it once and recorded it once, but you don't really hear it that much.
Wow, that's amazing. And then that tape, usually Dave Fanning would talk through the songs. So some of the songs were kind of like the morning show and a track mixed together.
And so David talk over the start of a song where you'd want to listen to like the start of Alternative Ulster. And as the guitar would start to be, and now we're going to play a song here by Stiff Little Fingers, and you'd be going, Dave, shut up, I'm trying to record this.
And back then, in the good old days, tapes were very common to be recording radio. Like I know I used to record John Creeden sometimes on tapes, and I still very rarely, but still do sometimes on tapes.
Yeah, everybody used to use tapes. You had the C60C C30, C60, C90s.
And then C120s.
But they were rare. If you got your hands on them, you'd pay for them. But they were good.
And then to get them now, you can only imagine.
And we used to do things like in school. When we were going into school, we'd record different albums or record stuff off the radio. And we'd swap tapes, mixtapes.
Oh! So it
They're not just with girls, you do it with lads as well.
Yeah, you can imagine. You swap with the girl and Barbie Girl starts playing through the tape.
Or somebody would hand you a Prince album and you'd be going, oh, Jesus Christ, I'm after giving them a Sex Pistols album. That's not going to work out well.
If you could bring back any DJ, who would it be?
I think it has to be...
I knew I'd get you there.
No, it has to be a legend called Larry Gogan. Larry Gogan used to do the Golden Hour.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, he used to do the Just a Minute quiz and stuff like that. He was just a really nice man. Now, he used to play a lot of pop records and stuff like that, but as far as DJs go, he was very gentle, very nice, very open, would always try and encourage new bands, that kind of stuff. And he was really, he was into music. That's the thing. He was actually into music.
That's the thing. Was he kind of like a talk and a kind of fun and kind of music kind of show? So it was a bit of everything.
Yeah, his shows were a real variety performance because you had all sorts of things going on.
Yeah. Did you listen with your family? Was there any radio shows that you listened to with your dad or your siblings?
No.
Because you had two other ones.
No, my two sisters, because they're a bit younger than me, they were more into listening to Kylie Minogue and Shaky Stevens and stuff like that, where I was more into listening to AC/DC, Dead Kennedys, Stiff Little Fingers, also The Clash.
And you're still into Dead Kennedys and DOA. You've got them all in your songs on Spotify. And did you I know we were saying that you used to swap tapes, but did you talk to your friends about different radio stations as well? Did you guys connect a lot with those kind of radio stations?
Nearly every morning when we come into school, we'd be talking about what particular songs we heard on Dave Fanning the night before. And it was the start of his, I think the start of his radio show, there was a song by Fleetwood Mac, was the intro on guitar, which was pretty good. But we used to always be listening out for something a bit different. And then he had changed his music then to, I think it was from Horselips. But yeah, we used to talk every day in school and sort of say, did you hear the Clash track you played last night? Or something like that was cool.
That's never happened anymore because no kids in my class ever listen to radio. And I listen to sometimes John Kelly and John Creeden, as you know. Two Johns there, what weird. And really, I think it's a kind of weird that a lot of children don't listen to radio, yet I think it's 88% of streaming in Ireland is radio.
Yeah, I think half the problem is, Logan, with kids now, that they're only listening to music that's either incredibly popular or on the telly or something like that. Because, to be fair, I used to listen to jazz. My dad used to listen to everything from Traffic through to Mario Lanza and stuff like that. So we got a really wide variation of music, and because of that, you get a love for radio. That's why even with John Kelly on his program, he plays world music, jazz, old punk stuff, everything.
I really like John Kelly because the way he has his mystery train thing. The introduction is the sound of a train going around a railway, and it is like a mystery train because it's a bit of everything, and it's really hard to be able to play punk and then immediately after it, very slow, smooth jazz.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool that they can do that.
But that's the beauty of radio, because on radio now, and even on some of the streaming things, there's a thing at the moment called Radio Garden, where you can download
Radio Garden,
and you can go to any radio station across the world or any country. You can actually go onto a globe, pick out a country, and listen to their local radio. So it just gives you a greater appreciation for music.
And by the way, for those who want to get Radio Garden, if you're on PC, you can get it on the website, and if you have a phone, you can get it as an app on Google Play.
Or on the App Store or on Play Store.
Yeah, and it's really handy, though, to listen to all these different shows. And I think now what's happening is more people are starting to watch more TV, you could say, than listen to radio. A lot of people now listen to the news on the radio, like going to work or stuff. They don't actually listen to the music stations like RTE Gold or 2FM because they play a lot of pop music as well. And it's kind of weird now seeing everything transition to, let's say, TV.
Yeah.
When a lot of people underestimate radio. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're right because, to be honest with you, radio for me growing up was more entertainment. It wasn't just the DJ just played a song one after the other. There was a bit more conversational interaction with the listener, where it might be Dave Fanning might be talking about the song or the album or the band or whatever it may be, or that there's a gig coming up that you should go to see or that kind of stuff, rather than...
Yeah, like he's got a new show out, Fanning at Whelan's. So that's with his gigs. So he shows, So that's kind of like radio on TV, kind of.
Well, you see, the thing is, you things like years ago, I remember going to see Fugazi. Fugazi and Chumbawamba in the same gig. It was on the SFX. And how I heard about that was through Dave Fanning's radio program, right? So Dave was after playing a song by Fugazi called Waiting Room. And he said, this is a band that's coming to Dublin in May. And it was in 1991, I think, at the time. So we all got a chance to go up to the SFX. And had Dave not said it, we may not have been aware of it because the internet wasn't as prevalent and you weren't able to get that information.
And the songs that were in that show, Chumbawamba, you can't get on Spotify some of the songs that they were playing. So as well, it was quite a very big concert. And was there many there?
Oh, there was, yeah. It was a full house. Full house. It was really, really warm. It was May the 9th. And it was actually £4.50 for the ticket in.
Oh my God.
It was a benefit to help research with AIDS and stuff.
Yeah, actually touching off Fugazi there. The rule was for CDs and stuff buying off Fugazi, it had to be under €10. If it was under €10, you wouldn't be allowed to sell their CD. If it was over €10, you wouldn't be allowed to sell their CDs. And their gigs, if they wouldn't play where there's alcohol being served.
Yeah, and you couldn't advertise alcohol or tobacco. But anyway, look, getting back to radio at the time.
Back to radio, sorry.
Getting back to talking about Dave and people like that. Weirdly, I think radio, for me as a child, as much as I was into certain types of music, it just did broaden my horizon. And that's why International Radio Day is probably very important for everybody, especially kids your age, Logan, that they should start to try and understand that there's more stuff available to them.
There's not just a screen or football or school. There's also music, and music's very big in my life. Like, I remember the only reason why I got into music, and it was the simplest thing ever. You just put a Caius CD into the CD player, and I think I was 4. And ever since I was 4, I started to love music.
Yeah.
And then stuff like going into the study room and go flicking through the CDs in the box. That also helped as well. And now I'm listening to John Creeden.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about it. That is the thing though. It's radio and music. It can really highlight your mood. It can help you through difficult times. It can help you to concentrate with your studying sometimes. It has lots of different things, and that's why radio is critically important. With the like of the guys on Nova that do play a bit more alternative stuff and a bit more rocky stuff is cool as well. And that's some of the newer channels that are like Lyric FM is excellent for listening to.
Yes.
Not just John
Kelly. They're very good. They're like, people think RT Lyric, it's all classical music. It's definitely not. It is world music. You could turn it on at one point and it could be classical music. You could turn it on in an hour's time and you could be listening to Arabic music. Yeah,
well, that's why Marty Whelan, who used to be always on the telly, but now has a radio show on it, Marty in the Morning. It's actually quite good. It's a big change and stuff. But even like there's a guy called George Hamilton that is a sports commentator. I would know him as. He was used to always commentating all the Irish soccer matches.
Yeah.
He's got his own show that's all just classical music. I never knew he was even into it. But he goes into real detail. And then there's a lady called Elena Kradich, I think is her name, or Elena Kradich. And she does like a mid-afternoon concert, which is a concert taken from an orchestra somewhere across Europe, and they just play music. And it's beautiful. But you don't get that opportunity normally at home to listen to that kind of thing. That's why you need radio to help to educate and illuminate.
Do you know what? I don't know how I'd survive a day without radio. Because honestly, usually school can be a bit annoying for me. So when I come home and I've done my homework, I've eaten my dinner, I played outside with the lads for like an hour or so, and I come in and I need to rest and I want to read a book. John Creeden is so helpful. And then also Perform Arena. It's like music connected with a talk radio. And on Arena, they sometimes play old episodes or specials that were from like a couple of years ago. And then John Creeden, he doesn't only have the John Creeden Show. He has Creedon's Atlas of Ireland as well. He's released a book. He does specials. I think the Shine a Light special each year.
I don't think you ever saw. Dave Fanning used to do a series of interviews where Fanning used to do things like REM were recording an album in Lutterellstown, which is up near Blanchetown, and he went and met them, and he did interviews with them and with Van Morrison and all that kind of stuff. So
did he meet Van Morrison?
Oh yeah, he'd know, like David know everyone really.
Yeah.
But that's where DJs have a very important role in communicating, and that's the bit. It's to communicate and educate the listener. To educate them as in to let them know that there's new albums coming out, or to say, did you ever hear this particular album?
Yeah.
Or this song comes from a very rare album, whether it be things like the Ramones from years ago, like there's a brilliant album called Rocket to Russia that was sort of overlooked, but Fanning used to play stuff by the Ramones that nobody had heard of and stuff like that, which just gives people an idea of what's going on.
Like, you could look everywhere on the likes of Discogs, which is an app for records and stuff, or you could look all over the internet for a song, and you might not ever find it, but you could find it on the radio just by turning it on.
Yeah, you could.
And that's what we were saying with the old tape over there, that you happened to record a song that you can't get on Spotify. You can't get a CD of it, not even on Discogs. You can't just walk in and say, "Oh, I want this."
Well, it's funny. I as you know, I like some really unusual sort of musics, like throat singing from Outer Mongolia.
Every single time you put on throat singing, Mom just gives you this look.
I know. But I was able to come across Siberian radio that just had a Russian throat singing that I'd never heard before, and I used that with that radio garden. But look at, I just think at this stage everybody should use a radio to educate and stimulate themselves on a daily basis, because it's there for everybody. It's free.
Yeah.
It's free.
Do you know that's it? Entertainment for free. You get free entertainment. How good is that? You have to pay for TV. You got to pay to go to the cinema. You don't have to pay for radio. All you have to do is buy a stereo or anything. Anyways, I think we'll start to finish up there now. We'll see ya, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Logan Sounds Off.
Thanks.
Bye.